It is already past 4 o'clock. This is becoming a tradition. It's not that I don't like your questions, but the only flight available to Finland leaves at like 7, which means that I'm gonna, like, when I'm done, I'm gonna run, okay? I have a very heavy bag, not that I'm that heavy a man, but I have a really heavy bag, so if you try to stop me, you're gonna get hurt, okay? So I wouldn't try. You're gonna have like raffle and all that stuff after this, so I'm not trying to be the normal impolite Finnish person, but I'm just gonna disappear, so don't worry about that. I always get this opportunity, well, not always, but for the past few years I've had the opportunity to do the lock note. I already told Paula that next year we will switch. She will do the lock note and I will do the keynote so that I can get to the airport without running. And also because apparently everyone wants to talk about AI now. So now I have a problem. First I have a keynote who steals my demos, and then I had the Swedish guy who stole my jokes. So it's like a holy promise. There's a holy promise towards. I don't know why everyone says that I should do stand-up comedy, but stand-up comedians have one unbreakable rule: is that you do not steal others' jokes. I gave Mikael Nyström a few USB keys just to get even. So let's see how his security control goes. Anyway, this is called Forward to the Past and Back to the Future. Most of our speakers' time goes into inventing funny titles so that we can get into conferences. Last week I did a session, and the previous week I did a session called Follow. I thought it was like follow suit, deploy least privilege, but because I had to get into those conferences, and they're like cloud conferences, so then I just added like follow Intune suit and get rid of admin rights. The only problem was that last week in Baden, the person who is owning the whole project, Matt, was actually sitting in the audience. And my only thing to say about Windows endpoint privilege management was the last slide that it said it totally sucks. I tried to say it in a nice way, but it really does. And this is recorded, which is just great. It's not the first time I'm under investigation for something, so. Anyway, if we have not met before, my name is Sami Laiho. This is my, I think, 8th year running here, AppManagEvent. And I tour around the world in different conferences, and I met many of you. I'm not going to take too much of this time, but it is, again, after COVID, like starting to be the same. I did spend 6 months working for a security company. I worked with the Swedes for 6 months, but that was enough. I'm solo again, so it's like that 6 months never happened, but it was a really good experience. So I worked with incident response teams for 6 months. So in that sense, everything that we're going to talk about is like based on real field experience of what the threats currently are. So in that sense, it was a really good experience. Nothing against that. But anyway, if you want to follow me, I have a Twitter account, which is now X. At least today it was X. If it goes down, or if Elon Musk decides that people have to pay for it, I have a backup, hot backup, Blue Sky. It's the same as Twitter, the same people build it, and it's going to take them a few years to get the app working as well as Twitter does, but it basically looks exactly the same, except there's no people there yet because it's only a hot backup. So, but when Elon said that you can't block people anymore, on that day instantly Blue Sky servers went down because like hundreds of thousands of people instantly flew jumped ship and went to blue sky. So it really seems to be like a hot backup. There are other things that I just can't get to work, like Mastodon and all that stuff, but I honestly hate it. LinkedIn, follow up, just find me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to connect. Just my probably most active business channel. We're going to start off with a few numbers to talk about, which are kind of contradicting and interesting. So 2 hours is the time on average that it takes for the malicious actor to get from the first point of contact to your environment. Let's say they hack your VPN gateway. So the first point of entry to domain admin, or from that point of entry to global admin. So 2 hours is the average time it takes. On the other hand, 180 days is an average. Someone said 190 something today, but that might depend on the source. 180 days, based on my research, is the time that they use on average to compromise your environment. So they're very different numbers. 2 hours is very short, but on the other hand, 180 days is very long. So I'm going to go through a little bit of explanation on why this is as it is. So it has to do a lot with the ransomware as a service industry itself. 2% of victims. Some say that 2023 has already been 10%, which, if that is accurate, which I can't confirm, but if it is, it's a good thing, a very good thing. But for the last year, 2% of victims was the amount of people that went public with the breach. So 2% will tell that they were breached. And this is just shameful, honestly. Everyone here who works with security, we would have more budget, we would have more buy-in, we would have management more happy. Everything would be easier if people would just tell that they were breached. It's easy to get forgiveness, but it is very hard to uncancel yourself from social media. So you should not try that route. There are a lot of restrictions in Europe. If you have any personal details, you should be under GDPR, which means that if you don't tell in 72 hours, you get a fine. And that's kind of what I see as a very weird thing. Even if we put fines on this, we get to 2%. So that's my statistics, and that is based on the fact that there were 180 breaches that I worked with, and 3 of them went public. That's after a legal team telling them that you have to go public. I mean, the incident responders will tell them that based on law and based on everything we tell you, the first thing you do now is notify that you're breached. And still we end up with 2%, because it's their call. I always tell people that if someone robs a bank here in Utrecht, then no one's going to blame the bank. I mean, you're not going to see like news saying, oh, the stupid bank got robbed because they had their front door open during the night. Even if that would be the case, no one would be bashing on them. But our industry, this holds this stigma of, like, we will not tell anyone that we did something less smart and we got breached. Yeah, it kind of tells the story very well from my own dear country, Finland, is that honestly, for the 2 years now in a row, there's a national prize that is given to a company or a public sector entity that has done something great for the cyber security industry. And for 2 years now, that prize has been given to a company or a public sector entity that was willing to tell that they were breached. Think about it. You get a national prize if you say out loud that you were hacked. Then you can get to the ball on 6th of December when we have our Independence Day, and President will call you in and you get to this ball where every important people goes and all that stuff. Isn't it quite funny? Well, not really funny, not haha funny, but I mean it's quite annoying because that makes my job a lot harder. Excuse me. I was in Switzerland, and I had a company who was basically just like throwing out money like this, like, let's deploy everything you have. And I assumed that they were breached, because that's usually when all this money is available suddenly. Now, that wasn't exactly the case, but when we went to the cafeteria, we looked out a window, and from the window he pointed at a building next to him. This is my friend's factory. They were completely breached by ransomware. But it needs to be like your neighbor that you can point at, or yourself, and then suddenly we have budget for dealing with this. Now, why is it 2% of victims? That's a thing that I have heard quite a few here, actually, quite a few sessions talk about ransomware as a service business, but it is a very, very complicated business. And I have a few very interesting cases to this. So, first of all, you have all seen that there's Europol or Interpol has taken down a ransomware gang. That's on the news. It's a picture of a one-bedroom apartment with 2 guys handcuffed, huge amount of gold bars and millions of dollars of dollar bills, 2,000 SIM cards, and then the news say that Europol took down a ransomware gang. No, they did not. They haven't touched those ransomware gangs in that. Those were ransomware affiliates. So affiliates get paid 20 to 30% of the ransom. Affiliates get paid 70 to 80% of the ransom, and then they pay 20 to 30% of that ransom to the ransomware gang that delivers the applications that they need for the attacks. So it's a very, they have service desks better than we have. They have SLAs better than we have. Like it is, you can think of the ransomware gang in the middle more like mafia. You still have these small players that actually go and rob the banks. The guys in the mafia headquarters will not do that. One thing big here is access market. So access harvesting operators are the ones that just harvest access. That's why we get to this 180 days number, because they will find Finland's biggest breach for public sector last year was a city called Säkylä. And they were breached because they don't know their stuff as well, so they decided to outsource. Many of us who outsource actually think that because we don't have time to do it, or maybe we don't know it as well as they because they deploy it to so many people. But they deployed their VPN solution to a telco, and the telco installed a VPN router with a root level access account with the username of test and password test. So when that is found, there's no reason to do the dirty work yourself. Why would you? If you can choose, I'll take 3 months of a project with huge amounts of resources to ransomware someone. Instead, if I get let's say 200,000 euros out of it, if you want to get real life, if you want to bargain with the attackers, remember there's a golden rule that you always get 50% off, okay? So if someone asks you for 10 million, if you ask them is there any good Christmas promotion or something going on, they will say, okay, 5 million, okay? It's always 50% off instantly, every case I've seen. So those are big numbers, but what if I find that bad VPN gateway from 10 of you and just sell that with 20,000 euros. I get 200,000, good money for a very little amount of work. There was a Swedish public sector event where there was potentially 12 cities that could have been taken down because an MSP was hacked. And when the service provider is hacked and we get into this more of a supply chain attack kind of an event, then the people who will be part of this auction are very different. Then you get to the nation level threat people. Because from Russia's point of view, taking down a city in Sweden doesn't cause disturbance as much because it's just a city and they go down everywhere in the world every other week. But if you have 12 cities that you can take down on a single day, that's an event that causes disturbance in Europe. And because Sweden is still trying to get into NATO, that's perfect, okay? Swedish people, you really want to join NATO, this is what happens. We share more border with Russia than the whole European Union together, and now we're a NATO border as well, so trust me, I know I know the enemy very well. Actually, last year I did a session about it, helping out companies flee Russia. Now, it's a big, big industry. Some numbers from the previous years, I had kind of previous numbers the last time I was here, I remember. But these are now from last year and the previous year. And if you look at, first of all, like what is attacking us, then the biggest part is still ransomware. That's your biggest threat. But you can see that there's a very, very close by access harvesting. That's who only harvest your credentials and resell them. For anyone taking pictures, that's not ready yet. There's another one coming after this, which is this, and this is the distribution of attack vectors. So for 2 years running now, last year I would have said last year was the first one, but now for 2 years running, your biggest problem and the biggest reason why people get into your networks is actually unpatched vulnerabilities. Not MFA. For 10 years before this, that showed phishing attacks as like 80% of the cases were because of phishing. So we deployed MFA, and I think we should just like be happy. We shouldn't always be bashing on our end users. We shouldn't always be bashing on ourselves. We should honestly think that we did a very good job, because we have now turned that statistic around from 80% to not even being the biggest threat anymore. We did a very good job with MFA. Made it happen. Should have a party. Yeah, celebrate this. There's only a few every day that get breached. Oh, that was the 2%, yeah. Well, anyway, but we should have a party for just that we did something good here in IT as well. So honestly, what do we need to do? Why did we do it? Why did we get MFA everywhere? Because statistics showed that you can block 99% of ransomware, because that was your biggest threat. And now the numbers say that you get breached because you don't patch fast enough. And I know how horrible that feels, because IT industry forever has lived so that the worst thing an admin could ever do would be to take down production because of a bad patch. That's a holy promise towards like our managers. We will never break production by patching too fast. You would be, in the early days, you would test every antivirus definition file upgrade. It was first tested with IT. If it doesn't cause anything bad, you would deploy it to everyone. I think many of you remember that with last 2 years, we had an event where Office didn't work because of a bad Defender patch. We had a case where link files, meaning shortcuts, didn't work. Occasionally, they are not good. Now it happened, did you stop patching antivirus definition updates? I don't think so. I mean, I think you still do it. But you have accepted the risk that at some point it fails. Windows is not doing a good job on this, of course, because they have very crappy updates. Updates, actually, kind of funny. If you look at last year, we had the maximum amount of, we had the biggest amount of patches for Windows than we've ever had. 1,292, that's the biggest amount of vulnerability fixes for Windows in the history of Windows. But what is funny, and I think I have to say it out loud, because we have to, if I'm telling you you should trust the statistics, then I have to go through the statistics completely. And one thing that is really weird is this one, that we had a 10-year low on critical vulnerabilities. In a decade, we haven't had that few. You'll see later on that all numbers, when it comes to how much cybercrime we have been just like exploding. So it's not saying that, probably we had less critical vulnerabilities, but they were so critical that they were abused more. So it's not that like the whole picture in a sense is getting that much better, but it is still something to look at. A global enterprise, which this includes all of your hardware devices nowadays, all your light bulbs, all IoT, everything. So that's not Windows, but in all, you have more than 20,000 patches a year. That's a lot. We have people who are very worried about this because they used to be employed by the company to be an SCCM admin. And now they come to me after sessions many times and say, you know what, Sami, I don't do anything but patch. We have teams that don't do anything but patch. Every day they try to patch something, and that's their only work. And I'm really sorry to say this, but I will, now that I'm selling my admin rights are not human rights t-shirts very well, I'm going to print out the next t-shirt, which is going to say, patch more, test less. Take us 10, 15 years back, and there would be some other person here standing in front of you telling you that I'm really sorry to say this, but we really just have to start free-flowing the antivirus definition file upgrades. We can't test them anymore. World has changed. I'm really sorry, but this is kind of going to happen with the patching in general. And don't think that I don't know your problems. In Finland, when you have, on the TV, there is this emergency note. There's a red line. I think you have some sort of the same system as well. So there's something really dramatic going on. My American friends, that's when, that's used when in Finland polar bears are attacking people. So they just roll this out. It might honestly be a bear attack, but I mean, it usually for something other than polar bears. But that's running on MS-DOS. It's MS-DOS 6.22. I visited an oil refinery just a few weeks ago, and we couldn't patch 2 servers. And I asked them, why are we not talking about these servers? And they said they're VMS servers, and they have been rebooted the last time 12 years ago. So I really know the pain. But I believe in my own rules, and one of the biggest rules is that in security, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If I was standing in front of an audience like this doing a keynote and telling you, I understand we really can't make this happen, I know. I mean, that's not the way to change mentality. But we have to change our mentality into the fact that we patch more and test less. Do not forget the human factor. My dear country, least corrupted country in the world, multiple years in a row. Most money that went out of our country actually still went because of romance scams. Our industry is a little bit bad, so I'm having really hard time to find. We have a few women at least here, yes. So, but anyway, I'm sorry. Honestly, this is not. I don't want to offend in any way. But the sad reality is that this romance scams, 95% of victims in Finland are female, and that just tells about the Finnish men. Okay, really bad husband material. So this means the traditional Facebook scam. There's a US Air Force lieutenant who wants to move to Finland and marry someone, but needs some money for the ticket to fly in. This is at the purest of what this is. Maybe phone calls, at least chat, email, maybe even phone calls. That's where we were, okay? With that, you get that amount of money. Next one is BEC, that's business email compromise. That is the traditional, please pay this invoice very fast, usually towards interns, usually during summer vacation. Pay this invoice now or I will have to fire you. And then they pay it. It's a very legitimate looking invoice, but it has the wrong bank account. And then investment scams. If something on the internet seems too good to be true, it is. If I give you give me $10, I give you 100 back. Must be true. Even that was the bad result, yet before that already 14.5 million was prevented by officials. So banks are doing their best to prevent this. So it's way more than ransomware in our country. And I just want to, you can't lower your training levels. You can't lower how much you inform your end users, try to educate them, all that stuff. We can never forget that, but we get very technical in these conferences, but we have to respect these values as well. The next one is in easy Finnish, I'm sorry. You don't have to worry about the text, Okay, this is brand new, and I just wanted to have it right now. But this is from the first half of 2023. Compared to last year, money going to cyber criminals went up from 10.8 million to 19.8 million. The transactions stopped by banks in the first half year went up from 6.7 to 15.9 million. Romance scams went up from 3.8 to 4.9 million on the first half year. Investment scams went up from 3.5 to 8.2 million euros. Business email compromise went up from 1.1 million euros to 1.9 million euros. Fake police. I don't know if you have it here, but this is very common in Finland. Police either call you or they come to your door with these funny-looking costumes. We are the police. We have to investigate your bank account. Please give me your phone and your MFA and PIN code. And went up from 2.6 million to 5 million. And we are the least corrupted country in the world. Okay? This is Mikko Hyppönen on the left side, on the right side here. If you don't know him, he's the oldest person living who has built an antivirus solution. Now that Mr. McAfee sadly passed away, Mikko took the spot. He has more than 250,000 followers on Instagram. Very trustworthy cybersecurity professional on Instagram. Next we'll look at his TikTok channel. This is a face swap, and I guess Paula was showing you some sort of face swaps or deep fakes, whatever. This is a Turkish guy, this is Mikko, this is done with an NVIDIA GPU at home. Okay? So if you don't know that Mikko does not speak Turkish and sound like this, I think you would have a lot of difficulties in identifying that it is not Mikko speaking.
Sayın Bakan Yardımcıları, kamu kurumlarımızın değerli yöneticileri, kıymetli katılımcılar, basınımızın değerli mensupları. Hepinizin malumu olduğu üzere kilit teknoloji alanlarında ülkemizin yetkinliklerinin geliştirilmesi hem dijital Türkiye vizyonumuzun hem de milli teknoloji hamlemizin temel önceliği. Yapay zeka da bu kilit teknoloji alanlarından biri.
Okay. Now think this and romance scams. Okay. If that was, I would marry Mikko. Sorry, my bad. Oh no. And now I messed up everything because I messed up the... Okay, now we're back. So I mean, honestly, I was on TV a few times now, interviewed by different TV channels, and they were asking about this, how does this really affect what's happening in the real world? And for US, for example, currently it's a very big problem that you need 3 seconds of audio material from TikTok, and then you create you find a child on a TikTok, create a voice out of them, and then they call you and say that they're in trouble at the city, they can't get home, they need money for Uber right now. And I've been telling everyone that I think this sounds really funny, but we're going to go back to secret handshakes. Somehow we are. You're on a call with me. Well, if Mikko would be on a call like that and says, there is a new cryptocurrency coming out. I know all of them have been scams before, but this is the real deal. I mean, that's perfect. I don't probably trust anyone more than him. Well, my wife, of course, but like that would work. So now when Mikko calls me, I have to say, Mikko. And then Mikko responds. Okay? Maybe we'll have an author, maybe we have a European Union digital ID so that we can have like secure calls between each other. But then that woman who was interviewing me for TV, she had a very good point. Sami, if my kid calls me and says he's going to be beaten up unless he gets out of the town right now, you know, that's not the point when you're like, please, can you open the MFA application and verify that you are my child? So there's a human factor in this. That we all know that's not going to work. It's easy to, soft values are easy. You can get to people, if not by threatening them, threaten their kids. Don't quote me on that. I have a demo of myself. I took this. This is from a public podcast that I did. This is the original material.
Että mä voisin asentaa teidän kouluttajien koneita, että mä oon hyvä asentaa luokkakoneita ja voisin vähän tehostaa sitä järjestelmää. Ja pyysivät multa sitten sertifikaatteja ja mä olin sitten isäni...
It's the smallest language group in the world. It's made out of Finnish. It's a Finnish podcast, publicly available on the internet. I wanted to do this experiment because I think that I am a public figure. So this could easily be turned against me as well. I'm more worried about this than I have been for many, many other things relating to my identity being stolen. So I put this on 11 labs and translated that into an English model. So actually I haven't done it, but we have to do it right now. So let's generate. I wrote a text in English and in Spanish, and using my Finnish language model, translating it to English and Spanish, okay? These are way longer seconds than last.
I am a public figure in a way, and I wanted to try easy. It would be to clone my voice. This AI voice is made out of the material you heard from a podcast that I was a guest on. It was spoken in Finnish, which is one of the smallest language groups in the world. Considering that I only used 1 minute of publicly available material to produce this, I think it's relatively good, maybe even slightly scary. Makes you think about the children posting videos on TikTok. Now the only thing that disturbs me even more is how did the turbo cassette of Commodore 64 really work? Soy una figura pública en cierto modo y quería intentarlo. Sería fácil clonar mi voz. Esta voz de IA está hecha del material que escuchaste de un podcast en el que fui invitado. Se hablaba en finlandés, que es uno de los grupos lingüísticos más pequeños del mundo. Teniendo en cuenta que solo utilicé 1 minuto de material disponible públicamente para producir esto, creo que es relativamente bueno, tal vez incluso un poco aterrador. Te hace pensar en los niños que publican videos en TikTok. Ahora lo único que me inquieta aún más es cómo funcionaba realmente el casete turbo del Commodore 64.
So, I think it's quite good. It costs 29 euros to make it. And I'm not trying to get more out of you than hoping that Kurt gets you to pay for the ticket for the conference. But think about anyone who's trying to get hundreds of thousands of euros or even millions. They're not playing with toys that are 29 euros or a personal NVIDIA card at home. So that's the scary part here. And although my title for a long time was Senior Technical Fellow, and Mark Rusinovich at Microsoft, CTO of Azure, is only a technical fellow, if you still believe him more than you do believe me, one thing that really shook me was that he was doing a session for us in Redmond, and when he said that the day when ChatGPT was made public is a day that we all should mark in our calendars because that day changed the world. And he almost got emotional. And if you have seen that rock face, Rusinovich, I've never seen any emotions in him before. I've known him for decades. And you could see that not crying, but almost. He was also telling that his niece was asking, what should she study? Five-year degree program, what language should you study if you want to be a programmer? And he said that he honestly does not know if he should tell these most important people in his lives that if he should really tell them that you should actually learn how to be an AI operator that builds that code for you. Because we have to think 5 years forward. And he was live, human being in front of me. This was not an AI trick. But I mean, honestly, I really believe him. And that made, the whole crowd went totally silent and it just seemed that everyone was affected by it. So I do seriously think that this will change everyone's. I have done a lot of sessions for, not Kurt, of course, you. This absolutely does not apply to you, but I have done a lot of sessions for conferences later in this year, especially in the US for Tech Mentor conferences. I don't have time to create those abstracts for the sessions. They're all done by AI. So I just tell it that please write what Sami Laiho would talk about when it comes to cybersecurity and ransomware in Orlando later this year, and it creates all those for me. So if I want to, I could just outsource myself, as I thought that I would never be affected by these technical things when it comes to my presence here. Only a few years ago, I would tell everyone that the only person with me being self-employed is that I can't clone myself. Not so sure about that anymore. Xerox, big company, makes those printers and whatever scanners. They have 150 countries where they run education in 60 different languages, which is all written by one person in US. It just types in all the materials that they teach their people, and then they have AI faces and sounds that just teach it to everyone. If you watched BMW, any of BMW's commercials, they're all AI. There's no real human speaking in any of the BMW commercials. That's all AI voice. So they don't use normal humans anymore. Which was interesting, because I've seen those commercials and I would have never guessed. So the war, of course, affects everyone, and one thing that affects heavily is this one, and it's a statistic about the amount of wipers found. Wipers are ransomware that are fake ransomware. So you can never get anything back. They're only used to destroy data. There usually has a fake note saying that you can pay me $350 to get it back, but it doesn't work. There is no encryption. They only destroy data. If you saw the huge lines on the Ukrainian border when people were trying to flee the country when Russia attacked, people couldn't get out. There were kilometer-long lines of people trying to get through the border. That was because the border control was down by a wiper. So Russia took all the border control down with a cyber weapon. So this is something that you have to prepare for. You might be easily... Well, Maersk is a great example. Maersk was attacked with NotPetya. Petya was ransomware, and it's called NotPetya because it wasn't a ransomware. Think about it. They took down 15% of global trade. One cyber attack. 15. They're the only ones I've ever seen. They had calculations on PowerPoints on what is the speed of ransomware. And it was something like 8,000 kilometers per second or something. Because they calculated there was some geek who wanted to calculate how fast did ransomware travel. He had 15 minutes from the meeting to the company office, and during that 15 minutes when he drove to the company office, they encrypted 60,000 Windows endpoints, including all locks on all access control on all buildings, no one could get in or out, and also wiped out more than 95% of all telecommunication because they used voice over IP. First thing, how widespread is this? This guy showed a document, 14 pages PDF with 2 columns of names. And when I saw it, I assumed it's server names. But actually 14 pages, 2 columns, very small font. Those were the names of the companies that Maersk owns. So that's why people see Maersk and think containers on ships, but they own airlines. I mean, it's a gigantic company. But they were saved only because they found one domain controller in Africa, which was down because of a local power failure. So if you want to learn something, is that your crown jewel is your directory. Whether it's Entra ID or whether it's your on-prem Azure AD, that directory is the one you have to protect. If you can get that back online, we can save you. Maersk would not have survived unless of pure luck that they had that one domain controller. But the people who wanted to go in didn't have passports to get in, visas to get in, so then they shipped that to Denmark to start building things again. So what does this mean? There's a long list, and because this is recorded, and because you can get the slides later on, that list is there. I'm not going to read through this because I have to go through this list anyway. So we will talk about this. I have changed my mind completely when it comes to what I will tell you. Even before, when you've seen my sessions, before the war, and before joining those crazy amounts of incidents, I would have told you that your most important thing is to tier your directories. I always started with that. You have to do AD tiering. Make sure domain admins can't log on to workstations. You've heard me say that many times. Now I don't start with it. This is more important. Some people come to me and like, Sami, but you said that we should do this first. That was last year. I'm not sure if people are like honestly happy or sad about the fact that I evolve. Even at this age, learn new things. So, what you need to do is you have to make sure that you cannot manage your VMware or Hyper-V or your backups with an account that is housed in the domain you're protecting. That's the main and most important rule. Good test. Log on with an account to that domain. If you have an account here that can wipe out your fabric or your backups, you're screwed. This makes you sleep better. So that means we have to manage them with different computers, maybe even directories. Some people have a Fabric AD, some people have a Veeam AD. They have to be different forests or they have to be workgroups. They cannot be child domains in the same forest. It's the only way to keep you secure. Then we can start deploying all the other cool things like tiering your directories. But we have to make sure first that we can survive if you get breached. And this is the way to do it. So they will always compromise this domain. Then when they have the domain admins, they will encrypt every computer inside. Then they will encrypt all your VMware computers from the outside. And then they will wipe out your backups. You need immutable backups. You also need a backup that you yourself cannot destroy at least for the next few weeks. So that's very expensive. If anyone's tried that with an Azure blob, make it immutable for the next 14 days. No wonder that first quarter of 2023, HP sold more tapes than in the last 5 years. Me being a person who thought I would never ever have to touch a tape again. But then when you see how much it costs for an immutable backup in the cloud, tapes are actually quite cool. Cool technology. Who invented this brand new cool technology that can store terabytes of data on a single media? Awesome. Someone said that they're good immutable backups because erasing them takes so long that no one will do it anyway. But you have to protect your assets. You have to have an immutable backup. I had a case in Russia, last day of the IT department working in Russia. We have log data that shows that on the last day there's a local IT guy, the Russian IT guy, who took a full Active Directory database dump to an external USB device. So we don't assume that we are compromised, we know we are compromised. And what we did was we revamped everything below here. So we made new management systems for the VMware and we built backup systems again. Because that's one of the only ways you can do things where you don't affect end users. You can actually do that without anyone noticing anything. Only admins suffer. Now, I think that IT admins should take some pride of their work. But I meet a lot of people where, in this case, for example, 30,000 employees' jobs are at risk. If anyone's ever tried to, that they have 28 factories around the world. If anyone's worked with Active Directory, you know that you can't go to them and say, we're going to install a new Active Directory for you. That's going to be a longer downtime than the cyber attack will. So we can't do that. So we have to first save our backs by having all this done, and then we can start to figure out what we do with the domain. 6 guys, 6 admins, totally pissed at me. Because I told them that you can't manage the VMware from the same computer as you manage your backups from. Especially one out of these 6. Like, you're going to destroy my life. My life is horrible. This is going to be so complicated. I'm like, come on, 30,000 people get to have their jobs. and you're whining about your life being horrible. But it's very common. This one guy especially, he was very mad. You know, I have my VMware console here, but if I want to manage my Active Directory, our big office in Helsinki, it is very big. I have to walk 400 meters to the other computer, and then I do it here from this console. And if I messed up something, I have to walk back again. And I told him that, can you commit to this for 6 months? Can you get yourself into the state that you understand that we are in the middle of a war? You're now part of the war. 30,000 people's jobs at stake. Can you commit to the next 6 months of you having a more horrible life than anyone on earth? Okay? Because you have to walk. I was already in my head thinking like just rewiring. I mean, honestly, like how difficult can this be? Just rewire things. And I was, So I called them back after summer, their boss, and I asked him, how are you doing? How are the people? And especially the one, you know who I'm talking about. Oh, he's just happy I just bought him an electric scooter. And now he's the only one who's allowed to drive inside of the company. So he's like, please don't rewire anything, because then I lose my e-scooter. Oh, a typo. That's why I always say security is 25% technology and 75% psychology. It's just like, this is what humans are like. So vulnerability-wise, remember your first vector is always Linux. Something good for us Windows people to remember. I'm sorry for this. Finland created a beast. But your first vector is always Linux. So normally when you're attacked, they attack your gateways, they attack your routers, they attack your light bulbs. Biggest takedown of a private company in Finland, Uponor, builds pipes, global company. They were taken down because Finnish data center was encrypted because in US one person plugged in a TP-Link camera, but into the wrong network. And that had Linux, and that Linux had a vulnerability. They attacked the camera. Through the camera they got to the server that stores the recordings from the camera, and from that server they got onto the Windows servers and they took down the data center in Helsinki. One small round TP-Link camera in US plugged in data center down in Helsinki. Well, not in Helsinki, but in Finland. So that is sadly Linux. So you have to honestly respect the fact as well that even if you think Windows is the problem here, the first problem is Linux. That's your more public attack surface. Anything that is attached to a public internet address. How bad is this situation? What if you buy a wireless access point, or you buy a router from your telco here, you plug it into your home, you remember that you have to change the password. How fast do you have to change it? Currently, Shodan, which is the search engine used for searching publicly available ports, Shodan takes 4 minutes to scan the whole public IPv4 address space of 4 billion addresses. So you have 4 minutes. Then you're on the list. This was days, just a few years ago. Now it's 4 minutes. I have a training facility, training lab running in Frankfurt. It has a public RDP port. My students can connect with RDP. These are 1 hour ahead, it's Finnish time. But look at these time stamps here. I press F5, 17:52, okay? So now it's 1 hour less here, but you can see that these are happening on this same minute, or if I press F5, oh, wow, okay, got a lot more. These are all attacks. Someone tried to log in as administrator L. Hamilton. Administrator J. Perk. I don't know what J has against me. Administrator Michael Dukovic. Administrator Caroline Carrier. I'm mostly attacked by admins or women. I don't know what I did wrong. administrator K. Wells, administrator Grace Skiamanana, administrator, me, administrator. The good thing is that, again, you can rely on the fact that your best protection is using a Finnish word for that. So the Finnish name for administrator is järjestelmävalvoja, and I have never ever seen it here. Okay? Remember when I spoke about the industry and how the industry works, and one funny thing was Finland's biggest town that was taken down. Whole city was taken down. 3 months after the hit, kids still couldn't get dental care. It was a really horrible case. And they were attacked by Lockbit 1. Lockbit 1 is a ransomware strain, but Lockbit 1 is very old. Lockbit 1 would not, it's not Russian. No one's admitting anything. It's not Russian. But it's funny in a way that Lockbit 1 would not activate on your computer if you had the Russian keyboard layout. It's not Russian. I'm not blaming anyone. I don't have proof. But the funniest part was, why did they attack with Lockbit 1? As Lockbit is now in version 3, so 2 and 3 are already in business. Why are they? It's of course shameful that they still work with 1, get breached with the very old one. But the funny thing behind is that when you find these samples of this attack code, they have a fingerprint inside of them. And that fingerprint is used to identify who's paid for licenses and who hasn't. So actually this ransomware affiliate had not paid for the SA software assurance for that year. So they had to use old attack code because they hadn't made the payments for the ransomware account for the software assurance agreement. So that's why they used old code. Sounds like a bad movie plot, but very real. Getting in after the Linux has been compromised, if you really want to stay out of, to get in news and to have havoc enough to take down a company, that is when you do need a Windows. So I'm sorry for anyone who tries it, but yet again, this was not the year of the Linux desktop. I'm trying to convert people, honestly, on this, because I'm from Finland. We made Linux. The very whole country made Linux. I've spoken to Linus Torvalds, and if you ask Linus Torvalds, you can find this publicly. CNET did an interview with him, and people are asking him, like, how do you see about the market share for Linux desktops next year? And he just basically threw the microphone away and started yelling. Like, you idiots! Linux was built to be a server operating system. Stop trying to make it a desktop. Okay? But there are still people who try this. I have a lot of friends who are like, I will install this free Linux and I will do whatever. And then it takes some time before they convert. Phishing versus vulnerabilities, so we have to patch more, test less. And this is where I heard that Michael Nystrom stole my joke. I'm very pissed off about this. Because I always say that I have rules, that if you have a publicly facing system, so it has a public IP address, or if you get a critical patch, you patch on days 2 or 3, if you want to stay safe. That's actually too slow now, because there was a Google announced a 0-day patch in 2 days, but it already got compromised. So that's actually very slow now, but you should patch on days 2 or 3. That's still my rule for my customers this year. And then if you have a Fortinet firewall, you patch on days that start with a T, Tuesday, Thursday, today, and tomorrow. But I heard that joke was used already. Those Swedes. Can't trust them for anything. Principle of least privilege kills currently more than 50% of all known vulnerabilities, which means that if you take away admin rights, statistics-wise, you can take a company that has no admin rights and doesn't patch at all, and then you take a company that has no admin rights but patches on day 2 or 3. After 2 weeks, the company with no admin rights is more secure. Because we only get patches every month. You have an average of 100 patches. After 2 weeks, you have an average of 50 vulnerabilities, but even last year, getting rid of admin rights killed 58% of all vulnerabilities, so you are statistically more secure. So please, just stop treating these like human rights. Someone was asking that they want new stickers. Järjestelmänvalvoja bumper stickers have worn out, so they are also available here. Someone also said that if we can't have admin rights, can we at least have admin tights? I deliver. I don't know who would ever want to have a tights that have järjestelmänvalvoja here, but if you want it, you can get it. But the stickers are there as well. I sell like crazy. This seems to be still a problem because these sell like crazy. You can thank the Germans. Any Germans? Hands up. Few. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I go around the world and I say, these are company-owned devices. We're going to say that you can't have admin rights on them because you only use them for work. That's fine, except in Germany. I was like, okay, we got a system. Let's take away people's admin rights for the company computers. Project stopped because we have to go to work council. In Finland, you have to go to work council. If you fire like 10,000 people, you have to go to work council. But in Germany, you are restricting people's privileges in work. So you have to go to work council to explain why this is happening. Have these conversations with the union representatives. And I went on Twitter just angry and I yelled out like, admin rights are not human rights. And then someone responded that just, can you make a t-shirt out of it? And on the first week, I sold 160. But I'm not good at business, so I'm still gonna come here next year, hope that I get paid, because it costs like $27 and I get $1 royalty for every shirt. Deploy AppLocker, workstations, servers, whatever you have. Remember that this one free 4-line AppLocker rule will kill more than 950,000 pieces of malware every day with no licensing costs and with no impact on your performance. Just says that allow things from these places, admins can't put things in, and then allow signed code. And this is the most cheap consulting you will ever get in your life. This ticket to attend here, and I kill 950,000 pieces of malware per day. But you have to remove admin rights first. Did I say licensing costs? Ta-da! Now it's available for professional as well. So it's not an enterprise feature anymore. Windows 10 and Windows 11 Pro now have AppLocker support for both group policy and MDM. Opened up so many accounts that I didn't have before. Now they're calling back like, hey, remember, we couldn't do AppLocker, now we can. Let's do it. CIS, Center for Internet Security, says that your most important security control for every company is up-to-date hardware inventory and up-to-date software inventory. Because you can't secure unless you know what to secure. How will you ever have an up-to-date software inventory unless you have binary control? You had it when you took that snapshot of the report and the next second you had already lost it. If you let people run what they want. Finnish medical company, think General Electric, but 100 times smaller. I did a AppLocker project. First month auditing. 5 most used apps, 6,000 computers. 5 most used apps. Number 1, SAP. I feel sad for them, but it's good that it's still like number 1, okay? Number 2, line of business application built by them. Great. Number 3, 3D pony simulator. Apparently in Finland, medical people want to learn about anatomy of a horse. Especially that the unicorns makes me laugh even more, but number 4 was Roblox and number 5 was Minecraft. If you RDP, you MFA, my rule. Some statistics, like I told you before, RDP stands for Ransomware Deployment Protocol, and 182 vendors in general, on average, log on to an organization each week. 76% of all cloud accounts sold on the dark web were RDP. 80% of all ransomware attacks exploit RDP. Stop letting people RDP into your domain controllers from anything but a privileged access workstation. And I am out of time. So I just wanted to take this to you. It doesn't really tell you anything. I also wanted to just before I came here, I took a dump of the most breached passwords in Finland. I will translate very fast. Penis, doc123, don't trust anyone, 0, Satan, sausage, poop, 123, local ice hockey team, Donald Duck, ASD, cat, password. Shit, 123, hello, 123, password 1, hi there, shit, password 123, 12349, QWERTY, password, shit, and the most horrible curse word in Finnish, perkele. Don't stop doing MFA. Whatever I told you, okay? YubiKeys can now be used even for RDP protection. RDP now supports, if your Azure AD joined, you can actually use a YubiKey straight to an RDP connection. Really cool, but you have to be, servers need to have an Azure AD account. So it takes a little bit more. And then I showed you the best trick of every speaker. If you didn't learn anything from this session, but you're a presenter, the best feature, new feature of PowerPoint is that in the earlier version of PowerPoint, when you pressed end, it would go to the slide, it could go to the black screen and it said end of slideshow. But now when you press end, it goes neatly to the last slide, so you think I had enough time to go through all my slides. All right, thank you.